a barren wife, you're nothing but trash. When I told Miranda, my mill, that my husband and I were undergoing fertility treatment after she pestered me about grandkids, she responded with insults. We were getting treatment because I want kids, yet she looks at me as if I'm trash. I felt devastated. Then, Miranda audibly sighed and said, I don't need a useless wife like you. Please just leave. My name is Amanda. I'm a 30-year-old office worker. I've always been career-oriented and successful, but I didn't have much dating experience. I rarely talked to men outside of work, but my friend introduced me to George, and we hit it off and got married. George, my husband, is a 34-year-old office worker. He has 4 more years of work experience than me, and I respect his dedication to his job. He's my go-to person for work-related advice. After we got married, we talked about our future life together. After some contemplation, George said, I want to continue working hard so you can live the life you want. You should live however you please. With his encouragement, I decided to express my feelings too. I love my job, and I dream of having kids and owning our own home, so I'd like to continue working. Hearing this, George responded with, let's make that dream come true together. So, we decided on a dual-income lifestyle. After George's father passed away a few years ago, he lived with Miranda to keep her company and assist her in daily tasks. After we got married, George thought of renting a place near his family home for us. I didn't want to impose on Miranda if we lived with her, so I agreed with George's plan, and we started preparing to move. But finding a place close to both our jobs was challenging. Miranda, noticing our predicament, cheerfully suggested, why don't the 3 of us live together? I have some rooms left, and it's close to both your workplaces. Taken aback and overwhelmed with gratitude, I couldn't find words. Miranda continued, I never had a daughter. Having you here feels like having one. It'd make me happy if you stayed. Considering this, I decided to take up her offer, keeping in mind our dream of buying our own home. Though I had minor concerns about living with Miranda, our life together started smoothly. She didn't mistreat me, and everything went well. After a year had passed, Miranda casually asked me when George was at work, Amanda, aren't you having kids yet? I was planning to tell her once I got pregnant, but realized I'd kept her in the dark for too long. George and I had been talking about it. It shouldn't take so long. I replied with a smile. Miranda seemed relieved. However, we struggled to conceive. Worried about our health, we decided to visit a clinic. We were dealing serious health issues, but we were relieved to discover it was just a fertility problem. I said to George, the important thing is that we're healthy. If you still want kids, we can get treatment. If not, just living with you makes me happy. It's up to you. I wanted us to choose what felt right. After discussing, George looked at me earnestly and said, I do want kids, but even if we can't, I'm happy with just the 2 of us. With mutual understanding, we began our fertility treatment. We decided to tell Miranda that we were undergoing fertility treatment if she asked about it. I approached it positively, journaling about the unique experience with fertility treatment. Miranda soon noticed our frequent clinic visits, and one day, she asked, I've noticed you 2 leaving a lot. The other day, I saw you at an OB/GYN. Have you got pregnant? A part of me wondered if she had been following us, but I saw this as a chance to come clean. We've been having trouble conceiving, so we went for a checkup and found out we're infertile. We're undergoing treatment now. Hearing this, the previously cheerful Miranda's face darkened and she spat out those hurtful words. A barren wife. You're nothing but trash. Just as I was taken aback, George stepped in. How can you say that? Trying to hold back tears, I decided to explain our fertility issues to her. Even if we call it infertility, the chance isn't 0. With continued medication treatment, it can improve. I believe we'll have some good news soon. Can you please wait just a little longer? I tried to speak to Miranda as calmly as possible, but her anger just seemed to intensify. You never know how long that might take, and doesn't infertility treatment cost a lot of money? If George hadn't married you, that money could have gone towards the wedding or his future. It's so sad that he has to deal with your treatment. If you can't give me a grandchild, then you should leave. It felt like I was dealing with a completely different person. Under the watchful eyes of Miranda, I began packing up my belongings. George tried time and again to reason with Miranda, but she stubbornly responded, "There's no need to defend an infertile woman." Wearing a smile, Perhaps having had enough, George snapped, "Then I'll leave too. To blame someone for a medical condition. I'm done. I'm cutting ties with you." He tried to leave with me, leaving Miranda seemingly unable to hide her shock. "Why are you mad, George? I'm not blaming you, am I? This is all Amanda's fault. You better divorce him and take responsibility." Yelling this, she brought divorce papers from her room and thrust them in my face. Seeing those papers, it became clear she had always wanted me to get a divorce. Infuriated, I glared at her and shouted, "Fine. From now on, I want nothing to do with you." Snatching the divorce papers from her. As I wrote my name with a pen, he looked at me with an indescribable expression. I handed George the completed divorce papers and the pen. After being berated by Miranda, George let out a deep sigh and signed the divorce papers. I grabbed the paper, picked up my bags, and stormed out. The moment the door slammed shut, I could hear yelling from Miranda and George inside the house, but it wasn't my concern anymore. 3 years after our divorce, I was enjoying shopping at the mall when I heard a familiar shrill voice call my name. I turned to find Miranda looking somewhat more haggard than the last time I saw her. Wishing to avoid any unpleasant confrontation, I just fought to say hello and tried to walk away. But she noticed my child in my arms and exclaimed in shock, "Did you get pregnant?" She quickly approached, accusingly saying, "Because of you, George left and I haven't heard from him in 3 years. Did you have something to do with it?" I denied her accusations, but she wouldn't let it go. "If you just had a child sooner, this wouldn't have happened. Why didn't you get pregnant sooner? Why did you have a child with another man, and not my son?" Her loud rant caught the attention of everyone around us, and her aggression even made my child cry. Just then, hearing my child cry, and my husband came and asked me, "What happened?" Miranda glared, seemingly preparing to lash out at my new husband. But then she realized who he was. The shock on her face was evident. However, her joy at seeing her son after so many years seemed to override everything else, as she fawned over him in a sickly sweet voice. "Oh, George, why haven't you come home in 3 years? Forget about that irresponsible woman, and come home with me." George, having instantly grasped the situation, looked deeply impressed as he detached her from him. Despite her efforts to cling to him, he pulled her away and moved her to a quieter area. He stared down at Miranda, who kept a cheerful smile. "Look, I've cut ties with you too. Stop treating me like I'm still your son." George, taken aback by Miranda, continued in an icy tone. "I never told you, but the reason we needed fertility treatment was me. Thankfully, with medication, it was treatable. I was the one who was infertile, not Amanda." Maybe Miranda thought it was a joke, as she chuckled lightly. "That can't be true. It's always the wife's fault, right? You're just lying to defend this useless woman. The doctors must have said it was Amanda's infertility, and you were just there to support her." Hearing this, I was reminded that she would always blame me no matter what. I thought that my decision to cut her out of my life was right. Every time we went to the clinic, Amanda was there for me because it was awkward for me as most patients were women. She made sure no one could tell I was the one with the issue. Seeing my husband speak with a regretful tone, I couldn't hold back anymore and said I had been consulting a doctor about recommended diets and supplements for fertility treatment. These days, you can find everything on the internet, but I truly believe hearing it directly from a practicing doctor is the most reliable. There are even some couples who go together, although they are rare. Unintentionally using the word couple seemed to have confused Miranda. Once something is said, you can't take it back. Regretfully, I decided to explain one step at a time. "What do you mean by couple? Didn't you guys get divorced?" Panicking, Miranda spoke first. George first tried to calm her down, suggesting that he would talk after she calmed down. As she began to calm down, he spoke as calmly as possible. "I couldn't tell you that I was undergoing fertility treatment. Amanda and I had decided that the next time the subject of grandchildren came up, we'd discuss it. But before we could fully explain, you jumped to conclusions and wrongly assumed Amanda was infertile. You even blamed her, calling her trash. Do you have any idea how that made me feel? My own mother treated me like trash." Amanda could have spoken up right then and there, but she stayed silent to protect me. Seeing my husband struggling to hold back tears, my heart ached. I knew deep down he never wanted to cut ties with his own mother. Originally, we had planned to just leave, but I know you can be pretty stubborn. We decided to get a divorce based on your wishes, but you never suspected that after I left home, I'd go straight to Amanda's. The truth is, we remarried shortly after, and our fertility treatment was successful, and we had a baby. Upon hearing this, Miranda, as if suddenly realizing something, turned to me with a smile. So you remarried. That means you've chosen to be a family with me again. I'm ready whenever you are. I'd be overjoyed to live with my grandchild. It seemed like Miranda, living in her own fantasy, completely failed to grasp the gravity of her past actions. Seeing George hold his forehead and hang his head, I felt compelled to confront her with the reality. No, we ended our relationship with you 3 years ago. Even though we got remarried, we have absolutely no intention of reconciling with you. As we tried to leave, Miranda began yelling, "This is fraud. Give me back my grandchild," in a frenzy. We briefly considered calling the police but didn't want to cause a scene at the mall. Figuring we could outrun her since she was weighed down with numerous shopping bags, we quickly made our way to an open elevator. Miranda, running slow, couldn't catch the elevator. We headed straight for the parking lot and went home without being noticed. Some days after the mall incident, I received a surprise call from Mrs. Patterson, our old neighbor. Even though we hadn't been in touch since I moved, I suspected this call had something to do with Miranda. Sure enough, as soon as I answered, Mrs. Patterson started, "Are you okay? I happened to be at the mall and saw that commotion. I also overheard your conversation with Miranda afterward. Really, she's something. Do you know she's been going around the neighborhood saying Amanda was a worthless woman hiding her infertility? But don't worry. Recently, she started saying George was deceived by Amanda, but I've set her straight." Mrs. Patterson always loved a good piece of gossip. After retiring, she'd taken up the hobby of chatting with neighbors daily. I always knew she was a forceful person, but I couldn't help but chuckle at her rant. I chuckled, thinking this must be the latest hot topic in the old neighborhood. Thank you. We had to forcefully distance ourselves from Miranda back then, but has she caused any issues in the neighborhood since? No worries. She's been quite subdued. I always knew it wasn't your fault because George soon left as well. After witnessing the scene at the mall and realizing Miranda had unjustly blamed you for infertility, I've made sure to correct any misconceptions in the neighborhood. So you're good. She spoke with such overwhelming confidence over the phone that I was taken aback a bit, but I realized that Miranda was now being avoided and had a bad reputation throughout the neighborhood. As payback to Miranda, things proceeded just as I had hoped. We ended our call wishing each other to take care, and I finally felt liberated. Neither Miranda nor the old neighbors were informed about our new address, and we, thriving in our careers, had left our former workplaces. I blocked Miranda's number, so if I avoid the shopping mall, I won't bump into her and can live peacefully. We plan to continue building a happy family with the three of us.